Hello, hello, hello. Thank you guys. Utku, Suze, thank you guys for joining me. I'm looking forward to talking about this, and I know we've lots of data to talk about today, and particularly around data and actionable insights. So this will be exciting. So first off, let's just kick straight into it. Suze, walk us through a little bit of your background, connect the dots from where you started to where you are today for us.
Yes, thank you for the invite to this podcast. Great, and nice to meet you also, Utku. So I'm Susanne de Schepper. I'm a Dutch lady living in France. I'm the mom of two beautiful kids, married to a great husband. And if I look at my career and connecting the dots, I think sports and people have been the red threads during my career. As of starting as a little girl, I was 5 years old. I loved volleyball. Well, I loved my dad playing volleyball, and that intrigued me. I was always in a gym. I was always playing with the ball. So I think sports has been a red thread, and I loved being around people. So those two are my base. I started playing volleyball when I was 5, did that for a high level for many years. And I think that formed also the basis for me to have a great year in the States to explore more about sports, school, culture studies before starting my business economics, sports economics study. So it was all sports all the way, but the business side of it, I love that. I ended my studies with a great internship at PSV, one of the biggest Dutch soccer clubs. Learned loads about event organization, about the sports around that. And then I joined a fitness club, and that was my first time entering a fitness club. And that started my 20-year career at Health City Basic Fit, where I had loads of different jobs that I did, ending at the end to go to France with my family in 2018, where I was the managing director for Basic Fit France, biggest country. And I brought that country from 200 to 800 clubs at the beginning of 2024, where I left the company, and I'm now currently the co-founder and CEO of The Collective. So that's me.
Thanks, Suze. Utku, you also have an amazing journey in a career. Give us some of the whistle stop for you as well. Connect those dots.
Thank you, Grace. So my story, is I'm a Turkish person living in London for the last 14 years, and my background has been always full of sports and data. That's, I think, the two things that connects me to the sector and to everything what I do today. If I go really back to my early years in primary school, it was all about swimming. So that was my initial sport, and which was all about the perseverance, the high intensity training regimes, and the discipline, I think, was the start of this. And then after high school, it shifted into basketball, which has been my career defining sport, and also chess is my other favorite sport. And I think the two combination is all about about teamwork, strategy, quick decision making, and especially on the chess side. Teaching me how to be patient, how to do planning before acting, and the importance of strategic thinking has been really the key attributes that how sports impacted my life and my future career. And after studying computer engineering in Turkey, I started to work for Accenture in Italy, primarily working on IT consultancy, but then running sports and summer camps for children for a few years before I came to London to do my MBA at Imperial College, where I met with For Global, with my current company, and this was about 14 years ago. And what brought us together with For Global was my background in data and sports, and For Global's core business around sports consultancy. And at the time when I joined For Global, it was all about London Olympics. It was a great time to join. And after the London Olympics, as we were continuing with the major events and hosting major events and supporting countries, I also started the data and technology side of the business, where we started collecting a lot of data from different sources about people's participation and converting this data into actionable insights in order to demonstrate the scale, size, and impact of our industry. And for the last 10 years, we've been working with governments, with federations, and also with lots of operators of facilities in order to empower them with great insights to get more people active more often and to provide equal opportunities to everyone in around the world to become active and to live a healthier life. And that's my passion. I mean, sports and data from early days to date is what made me who I am today.
It's amazing. All three of us are very sporty by background. So one of the things I always question is, how does sports influence your leadership style? Because we know that the link is phenomenal, right? Anything you do in a team setting, the skills you learn are so transferable. And they're what we use every day: communication, resilience, being able to win, lose, and get up again and go again, trying things, and then working with the team in order to know who's an expert in what and how a team works with the different skill sets. It influences how we all end up in the workplace. It also definitely influences how we end up being leaders and how we lead. Uktu, for basketball and chess, which is interesting. I didn't know chess now about you, so that's something new. I love it. How do they lead into your leadership style at 4Global and on other companies like Accenture and so on?
Yeah, I mean, I think for basketball, it was all about teamwork and how the different pieces of the team coming together generates a combined strong team at the end. And this is, I think, in business really important for me. So it's not just about bringing 5 superstars together, but having different skill sets in a team environment, which helps you thrive as a team, and supporting each other in that team environment is the most important thing in basketball, and that's, I think, a transferable skill into the business environment.
Yeah.
On the other side with chess, I mean, for me, I've been always a fierce competitor, which I think like anybody who practice sports in a way is. But
Yeah.
I think what's important, what chess taught me is no matter how competitive it gets, at the end of the game, win or lose, you shake hands. And it's all about really playing fair and also knowing how to congratulate the other party even if you lose the game. And I think in business you have this. You have sometimes wins, sometimes losses, and which both teaches you how to go stronger in the next time. So I think that in chess was one of the key skills that helped me grow as a leader, but also I think everything about strategic thinking, not just thinking one step ahead, but couple of steps ahead in my life has been always a great addition from chess to my personal story. I think those are the key things that impacted me most in my leadership style.
Yeah, and they're so transferable. I love it. I love connecting those dots. If we got more kids to really understand the value, I think hopefully we'd have an awful lot more, pull through of teenagers and kids being active for life as part of, not just because they enjoy it, but also seeing the benefit much later in life. And Suze, I have the privilege of working with you and getting to know you the last few months. How does it impact you?
Yeah, thanks for the share, Utku. It's super interesting. For me, if I reflect back on what it has brought me in my leadership, I see it as the serving leadership style that I have came from my play of volleyball. Volleyball is of course about being really good in your own action, to serve the next person to be good in their action, to serve the final hitter to make a point. So it's about very determined on being perfectionist almost in the actions that I can give to the team, but very also much serving to serve the other person to be their best. And if my pass is good, the setter can give a good set and the hitter can make the point. So you have to create that dynamic of being good at what you do individually and adding that expertise, but by serving the other person to be at their best as well. And I think that has brought me so many lessons, and I've seen that so many times in my own serving leadership style, is about giving my best to help others grow, to be their best, to serve and to lead.
You create a great story there. I feel like we could reinvent all of the business leadership books in a way that's story about sports and how they actually play through in sports and how they should play through in a team.
Yeah.
You get me an idea. New book idea.
Yeah. New book.
Come back to that one. Because one of the challenges, as we've talked about before, is how do we, look at the phys activity, fitness, sports sector and ultimately grow it, right? Let's look at the data that exists today in order to how do we help grow the sector more. One of obviously my, bugbear, I suppose, and passions is if we need to join the dots between physical activity and health and do that in a much stronger way. And because of, the statistics would tell us that women are more physically inactive globally, and realistically, then we also have less women within the industry, and they potentially are connected. I mean, research indicate they're absolutely connected. But I know beforehand I gave you a whole bunch of questions of like random questions going, give us what data and insights you have. Can you share some of the stats that you have that talk about the physical activity and women in particular, and what we can tease out of that in order for us to help kind of again use this data for action?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, we are working with a lot of different stakeholders in the sports sector, from operators of fitness facilities to small community programs or national programs countrywide. And you see different results from the data in different types of participation. Like, for example, although it's correct, in general, there is a higher inactivity level in women. If you look at our main stakeholders being the health and fitness operators, especially in the public sector, the data is quite encouraging. I mean, if we look at the last 4 years of data after COVID, what we are seeing is actually women are at around 54% today of our total membership base in the public leisure center sector. So actually that's showing there are more people, more female people in our facilities that are active, and they are using the facilities as well. And it's not just about the membership numbers, because they might be members, but they might be less active. So what we are seeing is the frequency of participation. Yes, male participants are slightly higher in terms of their visit frequency, but that gap is considerably closing as we grew after COVID. So when straight after COVID, the average visit frequency per month for female participants was about 5.2, whereas for male it was 5.8 times in a month. And now, 4 years after COVID, what we are seeing is now the women's participation frequency has increased to 6, and males is 6.11. So both male and female participants have increased their visit frequency, which is great for our sector.
Fantastic.
But also the gap between male and female visit frequency has closed considerably, which is again a great sign.
Great sign of it. We're starting to see the appreciation. I think COVID, I mean, if there was a few positives to come out of COVID, is that appreciation of the link between health and activity, which we all understand because we've had decades of research and insights into this, but not everyone, I think, in the general population truly appreciates if you're physically active. It leads to phenomenal difference in your health. And if nothing good came out of COVID, but that, thankfully, that's a good thing, right? So we'll take that with it. And to your point, Utku, this is where I'd love to see, like the insights around membership numbers, visits, which is great. And then likewise, how active are we being? Because I'm critical, right? I mean, I look at London, for example, when I was living there, and lots of people, myself included, would have commuted to London to work and gone into the gym in the morning for a shower. I did no activity, but I went for a shower. So I was fresh and ready to go for work. So this is the thing, right? The activity data versus visits, but I appreciate you're still building, a phenomenal story and data set to really weed into the details.
Yeah, and what you say there is really important, because obviously in the last 10 years we've been working a lot about the relationship between physical activity and health and well-being, and especially Sport England and UK government has invested a lot into this field in the last 10 years to actually use better data and research to evidence this impact of physical activity participation. And when Sheffield Hallam University did their research back in 2014 to investigate the relationship with health and well-being and physical activity, the biggest driver of that was visit frequency. So to get people active more often and help them hit the WHO guidelines for physical activity thresholds. And by tracking this, what you track is what you can improve. So by working closely with Sport England, with other stakeholders, we've been really contributing with data into this process of how do we not just get people sign up to facilities? Because as you know, in our sector, when you talk to operators, it has been for many years all about how many members do we have? How many direct debit memberships do we have, and how are they paying? Are they paid for payment. But actually now it's not just about memberships, but it's actually how people use those facilities, which is actually the key driver for social value, but also physical and mental health and all the other well-being impacts.
Yeah, it's huge. Suze, what do you see from Dutch, from the Netherlands and France and all the other countries? What's your thoughts?
I think, of course, the data says it. So I think it's a great outcome, so to say, of COVID that we became again active after. I find it intriguing to understand why. Why are people coming back? So of course, if we see already in the fitness industry a big difference between the Dutch fitness penetration, which is around 17%, which is still low in France, between 8 and 9. So there's still a huge opportunity for France to grow that fitness penetration. And also the activity of the females in that. What are we really proposing as operators for that group of members? What are they really looking for? What I found an interesting deep dive is maybe, is it maybe the search for social reconnection that makes females come back to gyms or to the operators? What are they really looking for to come back? What do we have to offer them to be more active? So I think that's a very interesting search, and I think the Dutch industry is already a little bit further on that. The French industry, I think, has still a lot to grow and to learn as well, and to also develop a broader proposition of gyms of any physical activity that is given to the French people. But I find it interesting that at least we are coming back. We are more active as women, and that's what the data of Utku says. I would like to understand why, and how can we make sure that even more people then come back and join the physical activity.
That's a good point. Utku, are we doing insights into why for users?
Yeah, I mean, we are doing both from quantitative and qualitative perspective, and that's been something we've been tracking quite closely since COVID. I mean, obviously, COVID had an interesting impact at first because obviously the home equipment sales have grown up, and in the beginning, and people started to exercise home. It was more convenient. They didn't need to travel for exercise. But then as time passed, what we have seen is a reverse trend, that people started to come back to facilities in different pace, because what we experience is, for example, the younger generation and also the higher deprivation areas were quicker to come back because they weren't really able to replace their physical activity with alternative choices. So they couldn't possibly buy a Peloton bike at home or something that can replace their activity. So they were quicker to come back. But at the same time, what you have seen is when people replace some of their activity with external activity, like outdoors activity, that again had its own challenges with the weather conditions and other things that again triggered people back after a while. But I think at the core of this, it was the social interaction, the connection to other people, not necessarily going to a gym and chatting with people all the time, but sharing that environment of physical activity and motivating each other to get active has been one of the key drivers in that. And this is not just through qualitative feedback. Yes, there is lots of qualitative data that supports that, but also if you look at the quantitative data, which activities were quickest to come back, it took longer for Group X, obviously, because Group X had its own limitations due to COVID, people exercising together. But when it came back, that was a very quick, high rising activity because of that social interaction opportunities. And again, there are lots of differences between male and female participants and what are their motivations, but we can get into details of that in the next stage.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? And we're working more from home as well. Like COVID, that was one big shift. I was in the office most days prior COVID, and then all of a sudden I wasn't. And I'm still not back in the office most days of the week. So to your point is we're very social beings. Like we're designed to interact with human beings, regardless of being introverted or extroverted. It is healthy that every one of us connects with humans on a regular basis, ideally in person. And the club, the fitness club, regardless of whether you're there to strength train or cardio or just have a social interaction with some physical activity, it's a positive with it. So yeah, it's good that there's a lot of insights, qualitative and quantitative. Utku, I think that's going to be really valuable going forward for us to think about the experience, because that's where it's critical, right, Suze?
Yeah, for sure. It is. And so it's about what have. Imagine for everybody, it's a struggle to find between everything that we have to do. I'm a mom. I have 2 kids. They have their activities. I want to do my sports. I have the job, etc. So finding the time to go to the gym or to another sports club and ending up there and not having a nice experience, that's a super demotivator. So it's about having that great experience when you made up after a whole day of work, you decided through the rain to go to that gym and have a workout. And if you then have a bad experience, why would you do all the effort the next time? So I think it's a crucial effect of the experience that you have, the employee that is there, the journey or how you get in, etc., to make that experience well. So people come back, because we know if people have regular visits, because having a visit, but having regular visits for a longer time, then they stay member for a long time. And the only thing that influences if they come back is if the experience that they had the last time when they came.
And it's important to remember, as you said there, this is one part of a person's week. So it might be 1 hour or 3 hours, 2, 3 hours or whatever a week. But to your point, is that a more active lifestyle is hopefully happening, whether it's transportation of kids to school, or whether it's getting to the office, or whether it's getting back from the office, at lunchtime workout, whether it's sport now, because we're seeing a phenomenal increase in sport. And thankfully, I think we're seeing an awful lot of people returning, or women in particular, returning to sport after they've had babies, right? They've gone through that phase of changing, and obviously phenomenal physiology changes as well as schedule changes. So returning to sport, and we're being more active later in life. So all these things play into it. And you mentioned like the French culture. Obviously, the French culture is quite different as well. Like even though the fitness penetration is 9 to 11%, it's a fairly active lifestyle, right? So
yeah, for sure.
The nice part is they appreciate being active, and the appreciation for the health association is strong there.
Yeah.
Utku, when you see your data around, sport, lifestyle, physical activity lifestyles outside the club, in the club, what's the data telling us there? Is there anything that's worth, teasing out? And again, likewise, where's the opportunity for growth?
Yeah, so definitely that's another trend we should investigate and look deeper into, because what COVID has definitely impacted is how people get active. Now, after COVID, based on everything what we said earlier, people have more choices. This is not just because of the digitalization, lots of options that help you to get active in different parts of your life actually gives you more choices, and people are taking those choices. So it's very rare you are seeing one type of person that's active in one location, like someone just going to gym or just running outside. What we are seeing is a hybrid lifestyle for activity. So I mean, people usually go between 5 to 6 times a month on average to the gym. Then they complement this with 2 or 3 times physical activity outdoors. This might be running, cycling, or something else. And if they have the opportunity, they complement it with virtual training at home, or having their home equipment in there. And I think as the leaders in our physical activity sector, we need to embrace this change, and we need to bring all these options together if we are offering physical activity solutions to our customers, whether as an operator or whether as a government wanting more people active and living healthy lifestyles. And this also brings in the importance of product development. When I say product development, how do you design your solutions that will give your customers the best option to stay active in different parts of their life and still maintain the strong connection to your brand? So are you going to be more at the center of their life as coordinator of these physical activity options through good services you provide to them and different options you provide, but also you need to better understand them. And when I say better understand, Sus made a good point. For example, different age groups. We said in public sector, just to complement this with a stat, we said female memberships are at around 55%. But if you look at different age groups, the under 25s, the female ratio is around 45%. So what this tells us is the younger female age groups are not really engaging with your brand with your sector, whereas the older age groups, if you look at 55 plus, this ratio is in the favor of women at around 58-60%. So there is definitely something about product development there, where you can say you are accomplishing to take more, to attract more female at the older age groups, whereas the younger age groups is a real challenge. So that's really important to better understand your customer and design your offer around it.
And do you think clubs are breaking down their population customer base by age and gender? Are operators doing that intentionally well?
Well, I think there is definitely a growing trend of using data and insights in our industry. And I should say in the last 10 years, especially I've been involved in this sector, this is now the peak where in terms of how much data is collected or generated and used. But what I always say about our industry is it's a very data rich, information poor sector. And that's been the past of our industry. So there is a lot of data everywhere because everything we do from equipment in our gym to membership data, it's there. But to draw insights is not that easy, and activating that insight is even more difficult. So I can definitely see there's a positive trend in that direction, and there are some companies who are doing it really great and really successfully. But in general, if you look at the overall sector, I think there is a longer way to go if you compare it with some other industries.
Yeah, it's critical. Suze, you're seeing that as well, I'm sure, especially at the kids, and I know you've got two very active kids as well.
Yeah.
Same thing, right? Lots of data, but not necessarily instant.
Yeah, but the usage is indeed that. How do we make it actionable? How do we use those insights? And that's what Utku says. I think we have an industry that has so much data, but we're not using it yet to the fullest. I think there's so much more to do to make use of that what it is and makes it actionable and adapt and makes it personalized to really use it to the fullest for the end user.
And when we look at some of the data, like this to me is where we're at critical point. Some of the data would indicate that 90% of kids today can't run, kick, or throw effectively. Like that's a shocking statistic, which means that we're not doing everything right. We have huge opportunity to do better, because if that's a trend and trending the wrong direction, we have got to address it and attack it. And I think I'm glad, Utku, that the data is increasing and the insights leverage and the appreciation for the insights is leveraged. Because to your point, you're saying that there's loads of data, even though I'm sure there's loads more to be collected and leveraged, but actually using it is where we really need to prioritize.
Definitely.
If I'm looking at, I use the Apple Watch and my data here, and like yourselves are active in different channels throughout the week. Most clubs still aren't catching this data, though, are they? They're not really seeing me for the whole person for my whole week.
Yeah.
It's a big of a gap, isn't it? Is this that the technology, because the ability to connect these devices is done easily. Fitbit does a great job as well, right? And as does Garmin and others. Like they have lots of data, able to share them, willing to share them, I suppose. And for global possibly is the one center point here of the ability to collect, aggregate and create insights. Is that how you envision the future for wearable data?
Yeah, so obviously the variables have provided people, the individual person, with great data about themselves. And this is a revolutionary change. If you look at 10, 15 years earlier about how much data we can access as an individual about ourselves, it's now exponentially grown. And this is everything from variables, then the body measurements and all the other tests we can access to. But the issue is a lot of people don't know what to do with that data. Even if it's presented in a nice way, in nice graphs, okay, I've increased my physical activity compared to last week, but what am I going to do about this one? And this is where the role of other stakeholders, other industry leaders become really important, whether it is operators of health and fitness centers, or whether it is the government officials that are providing sports, or if it's a crossover to the health sector and going to a GP and prescribing physical activity. But the issue is all of these stakeholders need to develop themselves as well in order to understand what to do with this data. So from 4Global's perspective, when we started working with operators about their data, the initial challenge was even the operators' own data is in different places. So bringing together all of their different data sets and understanding their customers' data in their own facilities was the first step. Now, after the growth of the variables, now there are again a few operators who are allowing the link between the variable data with their operator data, which gives them a bigger insight about their customer. But again, it comes to that actionable insight point. What do you do with it? How do you use this information in order to provide the best possible option to your customers to design their member journey? And it all comes down to the biggest trend in today's digital world is personalization. How do you personalize your offer to, if you have 2,000 members in your facility, how do you build 2,000 different member journeys for them that is most relevant? But I think there is definitely an intention and understanding of that. But in terms of are we there yet, it's a progress. It's definitely a long progress.
And like some of this relates back to, from my perspective, the board and the strategy, and thinking about your business and your product, right? And your end-to-end experience. You kind of need that diversity at the table, right? To develop a strategy and a solution that's catering for that diversity. Suze, you were a leader in the industry for many years, and obviously still a leader in the industry. We definitely have a gap, right, of diversity at the strategy level.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about what you've experienced, and likewise what you'd love to see and how you'd love to see it.
Yeah, I think there's still a challenge in our industry, diversity in the biggest sense of the word. I think there is still not enough share of information, not enough sharing of experiences, not enough sharing of different insights or different perspectives from people. I think we're still a very closed, often in a lot of companies, closed group of people that move forward, but move forward without accepting perspectives from the outside, not looking at what is happening around them, what are other companies doing, etc. Not learning enough, especially females. And there's such a huge opportunity. If you look at the female inactivity, but also female spend. It's the females that have 85% of the spend in their hands, but the companies are not really addressing that correctly, also because there is not the diversity around the table often enough to really have that perspective to change business offerings or concepts or propositions. So there's this huge opportunity if we get more diverse, in the biggest sense of the word, vision from above on business development, on what we offer to the end consumer. I think there's a huge opportunity for loads of business in our industry.
So we have credible, competent, accomplished, educated people like yourself, Suze, right? Ready, willing, and able to be at the table. We have insights, sounds like ready, willing, and able, and available through Utku and for Global. Joining these together ultimately leads for a more balanced strategy. And that's really what we would all love to see, because there's growth potential in the fitness sector, there's growth potential in the sports sector, there's growth potential in the physical activity sector at large, whether that's from your transportation to and from work and school, whether that's, where do you use your local parks, play, and so on. There's growth in all of them, because as we know, the inactivity levels and statistics are going the wrong direction. So we have to really focus in here on what we've done before necessarily hasn't worked. It might have worked from a starting point to growing a business, but if we're going to go from where we are today to a better future and a more inclusive, active future, which is good for business, right?
Yeah, for sure.
3x our businesses here, then you need a gender balance and a diversity balance around the table to do that. And we have plenty of data to help feed the conversation. When we look at the opportunity in particular, the opportunity and growth around leaders in the space. Suze, when you look at what you've been through over the years, and obviously many companies and so on, like, why are we not seeing it? And what are the lessons you would, provide to leaders, other leaders, male and female, in the space, in order to kind of go, we've learned these lessons already, let's not relearn them or recreate the wheel, let's just leverage the lessons we have. What are those for you?
I think that we are all so much with our head in our own operations or in our own companies that we don't take enough time to step out, to take this umbrella look of what is happening, what is available, which perspectives are there, and taking the time to really take them in to develop a product or the business in general. We often run fast. We often run for the operations. It's all in, and then everybody only has 24 hours in a day. and then we forget to take that step back and look at it together from different levels. It's not only a board, it's also that employee on the floor, it's that member, it's that mid-level manager, it's maybe a supplier, and really create that group of, let's call it almost advisory people to look at a business from the outside, stepping back and making it better. So I think there's a lot of wins there still. I think there's also a lot of wins still on personal development in the biggest sense of the word. For me as a female leader, I had loads of not loads of opportunities to grow, but I did not get offered enough opportunities to really develop myself or keep on learning or having a coach or whatever. So I think there's still a big gap in our industry. Really taking the time to be back on the floor and understanding what that end consumer wants. I also think that there's still a big gap in our industry as well.
Utku, when you see it from the data side, and I don't know if you have connected those dots between leadership, strategy, customers, what do you see? Is there a connection of those dots done well at strategy level?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we don't specifically collect data about the leadership or the workforce, but I think there are definitely links we can make from the data we actually track. I mean, if I want to give a couple of examples, like when you look at what type of activities the women are more involved in, there is a clear difference, for example, on the group exercise activities. It's constitutes about 30% of females participants total activity, whereas for male it's only 6-7%. This definitely clearly shows is actually there is a strong emphasis on social connection, collaboration, mental well-being, all variable traits for leadership. And also, if you look at the increase in activities that foster a sense of community, like, for example, aerobics, Zumba, where you see definitely a female participation trend, that's also promoting teamwork and collective resilience. And also, if you look at the other side of this spectrum and the understanding the customers, was making a great point there. I mean, we mentioned the age groups. If you are going to generate an inclusive environment and if you are going to develop a product that's a good fit for different customer segments, and if your 55 plus age group, as an example, is heavily populated by female participants, how can you not involve them in the process of designing the right programs, inclusive programs for other female participants to increase their participation? And this is not just about the social impact. Yes, there is a great social impact because of all the stats we discussed earlier, but also if you look at the commercial side of this, the times of the day when the gyms and the facilities are less full and less actually occupied, these are the times when some of these age groups use those facilities much more than other times and other peak times. So this, from a commercial perspective, will have an impact. We also mentioned about the spent attributes of different people. So how likely they are spending money in the facilities. Again, it's a commercial gain. And if you look at the retention profile of the female participants, you again see a positive trend there compared to some of the other age groups and gender profiles in the facility. So both from creating a social impact, but also a commercial impact, there is a clear opportunity here to involve more female leaders in the business because they can understand the customer better. They can associate themselves with them better, and they can help you design a better inclusive offer for your customer segments.
Right. I think that's really important. Just to double tap on that one. There's the social impact, but then there's just, it makes business sense, right? You know, even if you don't care about the aspect that people need to get physically active, if you're just a pure, you know, money-driven, you know, business person, that's perfectly fine. It still makes sense to have a broad perspective at the table to figure out how do you tap into those. And you have the data available for your existing customer base. You really also then need the voice of those that aren't your members yet.
Yes.
Why are they not in your club? Because that's where it's also like a bigger gap. To your point, there's lots, and I think we've heard this over the years as well, about physical activity, the classes, instructors, women are more socially active. Makes total sense, loads of data. Not all of us, right? I love sports, but I don't like going into a facility for a fitness class. I want to strength train. And now that I'm in that perimenopause phase, I want someone who understands what that means. Like, what does that term? It's not a dirty term. I had to say this last week. Menopause, perimenopause are not dirty terms. They're reality for pretty much every woman over the age of 35. Fact. So let's get some education around that. Let's use it in the marketing campaigns. Let's use it as part of they come on in. We understand some challenges. We understand enough to go. We can support you through a journey. And they don't need to be experts. And they don't need to be female either, but they just need to know enough to go. I can understand enough to go to help you get from wherever you are to getting more active in a healthy way.
And I think there's a big opportunity if companies are a little bit more, I would say, curious to wanting. Curious, huh? So you don't have to fully understand. There's so many differences, and there's a lot of studies that can help you, by the way, to understand better. But that's a different thing.
Yeah.
But being curious about that, about the differences, and how we could help those different groups, age groups, genders, etc. I think there's already a big win if every company was a little bit more curious.
Yeah.
And Grace, just to actually double tap on your point there, I mean, with menopause related strength training being essential and healthy aging data indicating women live longer than men, our data on older female engagement in activities like swimming, fitness activities indicate that targeted programs for different life stages can actually successfully attract women and meet health needs specific to them. And this is, I think, another time is, for example, pregnancy period. There is quite significant data that shows a lot of women actually stop at the pregnancy stage. But yes, of course, at some stage they need to stop, but they stop much earlier in the process than they could actually do. And also it takes them quite a long time. Of course, the realities of life as well, but also to get back to the activity as well. So I think that time period is a big loss time period for not just operators, but for all stakeholders to think about and actually understand how can we engage with this customer segment better so they don't drop off, or even if they drop off, they come back quicker to activity. So I think these are definitely things that needs to be thought of. And to your point, who are the better people than female leaders who will contribute to this thinking? Because you can't just put in a room completely different groups of people and expect them to understand this life changes and create a solution for it.
Yeah, you're so right there. I mean, everything from fertility, I mean, physical activity increases fertility. So it's healthy even before you get pregnant. We know the benefits of active pregnancy. I think now we're very clear on the research that you shouldn't stop. You actually should be active right up to delivery pretty much. And then, as you said, pretty much straight back into it afterwards as well. So you can help your body to recover knowing that it's difficult. And I don't want to put pressure on because I appreciate it's a difficult time, and I know since you've done it twice, you're rock.
But I was active, very active, both of my pregnancies. So I think there is a big lack of correct information, so sharing of that data that is available, because indeed everybody says, oh, you shouldn't do that. I was like, yes, science says I should, and I did, and I felt great. So I did during my pregnancies, and adapted physical activity for sure, but continued to do the physical activity because it helps you in so many ways during the pregnancy, right after, getting back, not only physically but also mentally. So you continue to being part of that world of physical activity. You're not going to be a couch potato because you're pregnant. It's a beautiful thing. You should use that body and stay physical active during. But there's a lot of gaps on the information that is shared with pregnant women around physical activity. It's not the message that you get. The message that you get is, oh, you should be careful, instead of the benefits that it brings you that are not well shared, I think.
And I can understand doctors not understanding it because they don't have the education. So which is why it's nearly more important for clubs and sports and professionals and exercise to really shout about it. Because doctors taking it the easy, the cautionary route, understandably, because they've seen probably more of the consequences versus the vast majority can be active throughout in a healthy way. Sorry, Utku, I cut you off.
No, I was just going to add a personal anecdote. I mean, I'm a father of two, and my wife, in both pregnancies, had been a member of the gym, canceled her membership, and started a pregnancy yoga class and outside the gym, and stayed active, and now has very strong connections with the social connections with the group. She has been doing pregnancy yoga. So again, this is a perfect loss opportunity for the gym, because they could have actually with the right offer, and again, this doesn't need to be, I think here is we need to think a bit broader than just our facility environment, because you have a brand connection, and this is pure business perspective. You have a brand connection with your customer, and that customer is, because of a life stage, can't find what she's looking for in your facility or in your brand as more general, and goes to another brand, and 2 times in different times period, and she never went back to the gym. I mean, again, this is a great example how a missed opportunity from a personal experience comes to life, because there are definitely more better solutions we can find as an industry in those situations.
And we haven't even talked about postnatal depression as well, which is unfortunately ridiculously common. We also know the consequences of that, but we also know, again, physical activity helps support, right? So there's an aspect of no matter what stage you're in, no matter what health stage you're in, there is benefit of being physically active. And there's decades of research. So yeah, we have to just completely continue to amplify that message. So, and then provide the solutions, right? So you're, whatever stage you're in, whatever stage you find yourself in, and healthy aging. I think COVID helped as well, where we don't have the perception that as you get older, you stop exercising. You know, I'm hoping that most people in the world today appreciate that as you get older, you need to do more exercise, actually, not less. Because reality is that the more active you are for longer, the health span is what you're increasing. Definitely gets harder. I know we all are talking about that, but you need to be more active the older you get. And yeah, women live longer, 4 to 12 years on average, depending on the area. So again, an opportunity to target and support, and it's a different experience. It's very much, again, around social and so on there. So again, having that voice at the table is quite important. Utku, from your career, and like you've had a very vast career as well, from Accenture right through to and different industries, right? What would be the lessons that you would share with people that are looking at the industry? Because it's not just being in the industry of fitness and sport and health from a physical activity exercise professional. You know, you're coming from a science, computer, data background. So it's not like we're looking at one skill sets here. What would be your, lessons learned in order for people that are like your background thinking, do I go into this space? I like fitness and being active, but actually I'm not a professional of exercise. What were the lessons that you might help share?
I think what we are seeing in our sector is both its strength and weakness at the same time, which is it has a lot of people coming from within the industry and having done the hard yards of even being an instructor and then growing to business positions in the companies that are operating now in quite large scale. And what you are seeing in our sector is, I think, lack of innovation. And lack of innovation comes from, okay, we have done these things for many years in a particular way, and that's the right way attitude. And this is, I think, the weakness of our sector because of not having enough external contribution enough, although it's growing now massively in the sector that we are in. I think we need to be more open-minded and we need to learn from other sectors, because there is, where we are great as a sector is we are touching the most important parts of the lives of individuals who are interacting with us, because we are providing them a healthy lifestyle. We are providing them longevity, which is now becoming even more of an important topic with the new generations raising. So we are providing solutions to families to deal with child obesity, which is a big problem for every parent that's having children today. So what I think my learning is, especially from different sectors, is we need to allow space for more innovation. We need to let more people into our sector from different industries, and we have to learn from their experiences. And today, when I join different conferences, I'm seeing a positive trend in that regard. In old days, I was seeing much more about people coming from the sector, always have been in the sector, sharing their stories, sharing their experiences, whereas now it has become much more open to other sectors coming in, whether it is financial services, whether it is health services, whether it is telecommunications, and sharing how they run business, how they do business, how they use data and insight to make better decisions that can help us with both product development, communication, strategy, and be more inclusive, be more diverse in our offer and grab bigger audiences, because we need to grow this sector. By hitting 10 to 15% penetration rate, we are not going to change the lives of people enough. We need to increase that. And that doesn't need to be just in the gym environment. That's a much more inclusive offer than this. But to do that, we need to be innovative, we need to be open-minded, and we need to use data.
And you mentioned two words there that seem to have gotten a negative press recently: inclusive and diverse. And if we're true to what the words mean, they're talking about diverse skill sets, diverse experiences, diverse, qualifications, diverse genders, ethnicities, cultures, and being inclusive and bringing all that mix to the table if you want to have a customer base that is representative of that. I think it's important to call that out, because DEI seems to have all of a sudden become a bad thing, and it never should have been a bad thing. It is about more breadth at the table in order to cater for and serve more people, which is just makes good business sense again, right? So, Utku, thank you for teasing that out. Suze, anything to add for that?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with what Utku is saying. I think it is also about being a little bit more indeed open-minded to attack the challenge that we have together instead of in silos. I think if we could be, as an industry, that connector and bringing all of those sectors that involve the health of people together and look at the bigger challenge that we have, and that we can be the solution together instead of only being the isolated one sector and the other sector and the other sector. So I think it's what we said: if we can share the data, if we can share an approach, if we can share more ideas, we will all grow for that bigger cause of a healthier world.
And that's a good point. It's part of the podcast as well, right, Suze, is where we have the silos of sometimes of fitness sector. We have a sport as a silo. We have health tech and fit tech, and then we have longevity, and they kind of all sit in silos. But to your point is, they should all be overlapping and should all be connecting and talking. So hopefully this podcast will help bring some of that together.
Challenge people to talk to each other and look together at what the bigger opportunity is.
End of the day, we have an inactive population from cradle to, and we have to attack that in so many different ways for the right thing to do. Last time before we log off, thank you guys for sharing so much, but I want you to share who is the emerging or established leader that you want to call out, particularly a female leader ideally, and that's in the industry doing great work that you're thinking this person is going to help make an impact and help solve this problem for us. Utku, who's on your list?
Let's start with Suze. I'll come in a second. I want to give the first opportunity to Suze.
Perfect. So I want to shout out Barbara Manivet. I met Barbara a few weeks ago on the FitX Expo in Paris. She's an amazing French lady that works for HexFit, but is also really an ambassador for female leadership, females in sport, female in fitness. She is an ambassador also for a company that's called Bouge ta boîte, so that's in French. Move your company. So it's a female group of females working in the sports and fitness industry that are sharing, that have a network, that learn from each other. And she's one of the ambassadors. And I met her for the first time at FitX, and we got a connection. We talked directly for 45 minutes, and she's an amazing, inspiring person with also a sports background that tries to her passion to bring it to create a healthier world. So our shout out is to Barbara Manivet from HexFit.
Love it. And the takeaway here for me as well is there's already networks, there's already educated people available to connect with any organization in the world to help close this gap, straight away with no hesitation.
Yeah.
Great shout out. Thanks, Suze. Utku?
Can I take a quick pause?
Yes.
Okay.
So, Utku, over to you.
So my female leader that I want to shout out today is actually, I met her very recently in the Active Leadership Forum for Europe Active. It's Lara Morgan. And Lara Morgan is a great individual where she had her own story about how, starting from scratch, she has built a whole business, and not just made great success in commercial sense in that business, but also inspiring a lot of other people to start their businesses as an investor after she sold her business and started to invest in other businesses as well. But what was most inspiring for me is she's not looking at it from a commercial perspective, but in every environment she steps in, she was looking for innovation. How can you make this better? How can you actually improve what's the offer in there? And during the active leadership forum, we were doing some different visits to gym facilities in there, and in every gym she was stepping in, she was trying to understand what's the core message and how they can actually improve it with actually providing a more different thinking and being more open-minded. And her presentation during the conference, which was more about how to bring in the best out of the business you are running by actually looking at those differences, diversity, and also providing an offer that's fit for purpose for all your customer segments, was really inspiring for me. And I mean, her drive was something else. So she was really inspiring. And although I met her just a few weeks ago, I think I will definitely want to listen to her more and learn more from her.
Oh, brilliant. Great shout out. Excellent. I mean, the beauty of this for me is that we don't know who we don't know. And often we find that we're all doing our thing in our little bubbles and we need someone else to shout for us sometimes. So two great call outs, absolutely brilliant. And I'll definitely be connecting with Barbara and Laura as a follow-up because yeah, they're doing great work. We want to share their story as well.
Yes.
Guys, thank you so much. I think we've covered an awful lot in this conversation. Hopefully it's beneficial and informative and inspiring to others who are listening to this and able to figure out how do they do it in their business to help grow their business as well as make a bigger impact on activity in the world, which would be a win-win all around.
Yes.
So guys, thank you so much. An absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to chatting to you guys again in person in the next few weeks and months. But for today, thank you so much for connecting the dots.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Grace.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. You can connect the dots with others by sharing this podcast with colleagues and teammates. At wearethecollective.world, you can join a professional network, avail of professional development, and engage your support team. We collaborate on the shared pursuit for gender balance in health and business. Until next time, keep connecting the dots.